All right. And we're live. Sweet. Well, today I have some awesome people with me, Beyond Mythos and 6 days, 1 week, and some cool due diligence about an indicator that possibly Ryan Cohen or other activist investors use to find GameStop or Bed Bath and Beyond, and that we might be able to use in the future to do the same thing, especially since we might be having quite a bit of money if GameStop does what I think it's going to do. Also, this isn't any financial advice. We're not professionals, but it is some cool things to think about. And so I'll let Beyond Mythos take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Pleasure to be here. And yeah, good. Like, okay, there's already someone, right? So just
Yeah,
like,
Medorson, hey, what's up?
hi. Yeah, just like some words about me. I like really started investing in maybe 2017 or so, and I like invested into Tesla mainly. So when GameStop became a thing, I took part of it and invested into GameStop in 2021 January, and I was like, okay, let the same thing that happened with Tesla happen with GameStop again. And okay, you all know the story. They took the buy button away, and like I learned so much since then. And yeah, like there was this group also about DRS with 6 days who just vanished, I think, who was curious and tried to like learn more and more about how the market really works. And we finally arrived at like there are maybe far more overpaid executives than we think, and it's where I want to share my findings with you. And I think if 6 days is back. Hi.
Hey, sorry about that. I don't know what in the world happened. I got a phone call right when we started, so I apologize, guys.
It's all good.
All good. I did like just 2 sentences to introduce me. Maybe you want to like say something about you also.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was an introduction. Okay. For those that don't know, I'm a huge DRS advocate. I contribute to ydrs.org. I have hundreds of securities registered in my own name. And one thing that people may know me for is for writing the heat lamp theory. And also, I was the guy who I have seen GameStop's stockholder list 2 consecutive years, and just very interested in these abusively short-sold companies, and it's just a passion of mine. And I'm really interested in talking about this because I think that Beyond Mythos is onto something really big, and I believe that it's underappreciated right now.
Also, I think
Yeah.
there's a way to this indicator that Beyond Mythos is going to talk about. I think it's something that we can see, because you can't see exactly what's happening in these boardrooms, behind closed doors, but you can kind of see these ripple effects. And it's a lot easier for us looking back now, right? Like when you look at like XRP or XRT, the ETF that contains GameStop, and see that it's had like 200 to 400% short interest for the last 4 years. Well, that's like evidence of the crime, right? And so when we try to think like, why did someone like Roaring Kitty buy in? They might not say this. I haven't watched all the Roaring Kitty because I came in a lot later than most people. But I mean, the evidence was there that there was definitely a lot of naked short selling, and that's what would lead to DRS, which is like, well, what if you just did own all the stock and had it directly registered? Then if there's more shares than should exist out there, then the true price discovery would have to happen, and potentially have to happen very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing which kept bugging me is like, okay, if you like have all these seller box companies, how do you do that if the company like um, has a pretty good future, like for example Tesla did, and so um,
And Tesla also had tokenized shares out. So,
yeah,
so that's something that's interesting. Is all the way back in 2019, GameStop shares, tokenized shares show up, and Bed Bath and Beyond, and I think also Tesla, which is that I think a heist was trying to happen, and each one decided to fight it in different ways. But that's when like the true crime happened, and you see that basically they were just with those tokenized shares, they could kind of infinitely short. And then if they had the board get infiltrated, right, then they'd never have to pay it back. And so
exactly.
that's
Yeah,
the mafia bust out model that's been happening. And you see certain common things. You see lease back agreements where they sell the properties and then lease them back at inflated rates. You see that with Bed Bath and Beyond. You see that with Red Lobster. You see it with Blockbuster, Toys R Us, all of them. It's the same model that they do, and you see share buybacks as a way to basically they short it when there's lots of exit liquidity when people actually want to buy the stock, and then they put their board members on the board, and they already have their huge short position, and those board members, their whole job is just to extract all the value they can out of the company and get rid of it. Usually, they'll give it to their friends. In the case of GameStop, they had Tiger Global Management convinced GameStop to sell Spring Mobile for
yeah,
$700 million, and then they
yeah,
used all of that on share buybacks. Right, that was a
right, exactly.
terrible idea, and they sold it
Yeah,
to Tiger Global Management's buddy. You know,
yeah, and like this was also the start of the idea, like how can we, like what exactly happened at GameStop? Why didn't we talk about it in depth? Why is there um, so little DD about like the mechanics they use? And one finding we will also talk about is like the thing is they take companies which work pretty well and then they make them look bad. So like customers will think, oh, I don't know. Investors will think, also like suppliers, and then it becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy when they also change things like we will see with GameStop when they lower inventory or do some other crazy stuff like you mentioned. And I want to like read you two tweets of or posts of Ryan Cohen from 2022, and this was also like part of the reason I was like, why isn't there kind of more investigation, and why can all this happen in plain daylight? And in June 2022, he wrote, in general, when an executive gets paid millions of dollars and leaves the company in shambles, they should be forced to return the money. Does it happen? I don't know. I don't think so. We will see. In July 22, he said, I'm sick of seeing failed executives make millions in risk free compensation while shareholders are left holding the bag. And if you remember in the um, general meeting in 2023, I think, he also said corporate America is littered with overpaid executives, right? So, and I was like, okay, if there are so many overpaid executives, why isn't there research on it? Why isn't there DD on it? And this is how we came here. And I just want to like, I'll share my screen.
and and I think that
Yeah,
part of the reason they pay them so much is that those executives are taking on a huge risk because they're committing a crime, and um, you can. Oh shoot! I just forgot my train of thought. Um, oh, come back to me.
all good. Yeah, I think the key is that everything takes more time than we are used to. We are like, or we retail investors are like trained to watch daily on the ticker to see like, oh, it moved this way, while those games are literally taking years.
Oh,
Like,
so actually, along with that is that you see in these executives come in, and
you're right.
In connection with the media, they pump the stock when they're
Right.
so they pumped GameStop. You see Mad Money,
Right.
right? They come out when GameStop, like, oh, they're going to do share buybacks, jump in, but that's the
Exactly.
trap. And so
Yes, exactly.
they did it the same thing with Bed Bath & Beyond. You look how hard they were shilling it,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then how hard then they were going against it. And so it's like the pump and the dump, and they had kind of perfected it. And they would have gotten away with it had it not been for people like Roaring Kitty and Ryan Cohen and all of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean now
Absolutely.
it's just, I mean people are actually looking at it. The things that the indicators that no one's ever looked at before, when share price is going down and a company says, "Well, we believe it's undervalued, we're going to buy back, we're going to burn back all our cash to buy shares." That'll usually make the price go up. And so then they say, "See, it worked. We made the right decision." It kind of lets them off the hook because
Yes.
short term, it looks like what they did was in the best interest for the shareholders, but long term, it's not, And so that's a great point that Beyond Mythos brought up, which is just that we're used to things happening really quick, daily, hourly, weekly, monthly. And, if you go back and look at GameStop, I mean, it was years. I think, some people had said it was almost a decade, that the shorting
Yep.
had started maybe in 2015 or something, even when they were profitable. Yeah, I think it's taught us all a lesson to be patient, and that a year is actually not a long time in the grand scheme of things for this seller boxing or whatever you want to call it playbook.
And when they try to shorten distort, they're also using a short time frame, right? They're saying, GameStop was a failing company, but it's like if it was attacked all the way back in 2015, which I believe, or even before that, I think they all were attacked in 2014. That's when Bed Bath & Beyond took out their all their bonds, right? They took out $1 billion worth of bonds, bought a bunch of properties, only to sell those properties later, 10 years later, for 250,000 or 250 million. So like that doesn't make any sense. And so when they tell the story, they're like, oh, it didn't adapt. And it's like, but the question is, why didn't it adapt? Why didn't GameStop change in 2015? And those people should be held accountable, because the level of a heist that's happening, right? That takes years in the making, right? Archegos, Bill Huang, like he wasn't going to overextend himself just on no like rational basis, right? Like it was a heist that was happening, and it could have worked, and that's the amount of money that is available to make, right? Is worth that 10 years worth of setting up a heist to pull it off and pay all the people involved.
Yeah.
I think there's
Just
also, it seems like they always have a alibi or whatever you want to call it, where you can just say, well, everybody knows brick and mortar is dying. Even
exactly.
when Red Lobster filed for bankruptcy, you have a big media push. Well, maybe if they didn't give away all those biscuits or the crab legs, like I think the nature of people sometimes is to pile on, when somebody's down, and really just say, ha ha, and laugh, and not just realize that there's something bigger here. And so I feel like sometimes when a company is dying that shouldn't be dying, that people just naturally are kind of believe if that laughing at it is better than trying to actually figure out what happened.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's exactly that if it takes a longer time, executives get off the hook, because they can always say like, okay, it was the only reasonable thing to do over a time frame. If we look at GameStop, for example, here you see like how it's doing, right? So the operating income, this is like the EBIT or operating income. This is where investors normally look. Also at the cash flow, with the not dotted, but the line here, the black line. and you see like, okay, they are doing quite okay, and then they dump like 2018, and you ask yourself, okay, why did it dump? And you see, okay, they like impaired like 560 million dollar. I don't even remember exactly what it was. I think it was goodwill, like from companies that purchased before, and so they hammered down the operating income. I didn't add here the media like calling out, oh, they missed the like going online, retailers dying, and all this stuff. So, but if you then like look at what happens to the cash flow one year later, they actually they um, they timed their vendor payments differently with 740 million dollars. So they dumped it. It recovers the year after, but now they are like doing their inventory thing. This is the level of inventory they hold, and then they like go for efficiency and reduce inventory. And they even I didn't know that. I found it during the research. Like here, GameStop is selling 500 plus things for $5 today. Just saying. This was from 2019, right? So they lower the inventory, they get it all out. So okay, they are now reducing the operating income necessarily because like they are lowering the revenue and everything. And then right before Ryan Cohen starts his buy-in, you see this green line is the operating income plus buybacks plus dividends plus impairment. So this should have been the blue line without the things they did. Like if they wouldn't have impaired those stuff, which they wouldn't have to do at the point in time, then the green line would be the operating income, which would have been positive until August 2020, right? When the um, when maybe the reduction of the inventory reduced also income because like yeah, their fixed costs were just too high. And like I have an error here with they didn't sell 30% of their stores, they closed them. And now Pulte asked an interesting question: how much would it cost? Like I think today or yesterday he asked how much would it cost GameStop if they would buy back or if they would like buy back all their leases and own the stores, right? Don't know if you guys saw it.
Oh, I guess I glossed over. I thought they said how
Yeah,
much would it be if they sold all the leases?
yeah. I was
Yeah,
actually
I think
looking
it's
for.
I don't think GameStop owns I mean most of at least the stores I'm familiar with are kind of in strip centers. Like they probably couldn't buy a lot of the real estate they're in, but they are probably in some favorable leases where if they could sublease, they could actually get out of their lease and actually get paid for it. And so I think it was, a combination. Some stores to buy out of the lease, they would have to pay money, and to sublease, to get out of a lease, they might get paid money. And we don't know that number. I think somebody was trying to calculate it, but there's a chance that it could be a net positive. There's a chance it could be a big net positive. And so it's just an interesting question, and I know Kramer had made the same kind of mention, which, sometimes when he throws out a weird statement like that, it's almost like he seems to know something. And so I remember it was a Kramer tweet, which was, GameStop's a holding company. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but he had implied now they have enough money to buy their way out of every lease. And it just seemed like a weird statement to me, almost as if someone had tipped him off that maybe that was the plan.
I mean, I see that as kind of this Ponzi scheme flywheel thing that people like BlackRock and Blackstone are doing is that the government is just recklessly printing and they're probably encouraging that, and they get money, cheap money, cheap loans from the Federal Reserve, and so they buy up all this real estate. They buy up hard assets, and as they buy up those assets, it increases their portfolio value because it increases the value, more demand, buy demand for those the properties, and that allows them to then leverage themselves more by buying more hard assets. And so it would make sense that you wouldn't want to be in a position where you're holding inflationary assets like money, right? Like GameStop right now is holding cash. You'd want to have properties. And if that is one thing that GameStop has is good locations. They've kept all the locations that are actually profitable. And if they, I think if they did buy them back, I think they could sublet their own store, right, to someone like US Mobile, right? That's actually something really exciting that I've thought is like, what if, because Larry Chang is affiliated with US Mobile, and they're affiliated, I think, with T-Mobile, and so what if, Starlink, is using primarily, US, something like US Mobile, and those stores are, and they just leverage the employees there at GameStop to be able to help customers in person. So like there would be ways to sublet it, but I think that their lease requirements wouldn't let them do that. And so if that's the case, that they are going to buy back those properties, I think that would be incredibly exciting.
Yeah, I tried to find the lease terms. I wasn't able to. I went back to, I think, 2001, and like ever since they leased their property, everything, and I wasn't able to find the contract. But maybe someone is, and we will learn more about it. But coming back to this graph, you see like how they actually make the company look bad before it really operates bad. And this is with a combination of like impairments and like timing, different timing for vendor payments, and also with the buybacks, right? So like here you see the orange bar is buybacks, and they're like obviously having kind of some problems, but they are spending like millions on buybacks, right? And also on dividends. So and this was when I was like, okay, when Ryan Cohen said corporate America is a little bit overpaid executive, I was asking which executives does he mean and which companies. So this is like what we will see. What can we do about it? And also which opportunities arise from that, right? So like in the beginning, especially on Reddit, everything was like, okay, GameStop is a once in a lifetime opportunity. You will never see something like this again. So yeah, let's see if this is really like this. Okay, we only have Ryan Cohen there, and also with Bed Bath and Beyond. But yeah, let's see. Just going down. Yeah, Michael, you just said it's similar to what we saw with BBY, right? Like you had the 2020 volume turnover. This is how many shares were traded in a given year, divided by the total shares outstanding. So in Gmail was with 22 times, while Bed Bath and Beyond was 35 times, right? So like in 2021, when everybody said, oh, there's only one GME and it will never happen again, you see, okay, there's another company which looks quite similar. Like also the percentage of institutional holding, I was like, wow, what's this? How can institution hold like 140% or even 150% and still trade 22 times the outstanding shares in a year, right? So then I was also comparing the lenders. You find Bank of America, JP Morgan, um, like, okay, the impairment they did over the last 3 years, the share buybacks, and also like how was their inventory decreased? And you see a similar playbook. You see 50% for GME, you see 36% for Bed Bath and Beyond, and also like as I said, sold stores is not correct because GME closed them, so closed stores. BBY, I think, owned them and sold them, so there was really much money to be made. And then you see operating cash flow, and this is really interesting because like you just saw how bad GME looked, right? But the operating cash flow over like 2 years was still positive. So you could argue if you would just not decrease the inventory, would not do the impairments, would not do the share buybacks, then you would have a pretty profitable company, right?
And if they would have actually increased their online sales, right? Like it's like they didn't even try to actually compete in that arena, which they had the branding and everything. They could have easily partnered with someone, and instead, that's where it's like, when you start looking at who's involved, I haven't dug into all the old board members, but I really do think that
Yeah,
there was
yeah,
this kind of basically heist of like they were trying to steal market share from all these older companies that they didn't have as much control over, the hedge funds and the Wall Street cabal, to give all that market share um, to Walmart and to Amazon and to Target. And so that's
yeah,
what has been happening, in my opinion, ever since 2014. That was the plan. And so hopefully, and I plan on doing this, outlining the entire heist especially from like maybe even because it happened again or happened, the beginning of it was 2004, but then 2014 they did more bonds, and I think that was when the heist was really really hatched. Because that's the thing is that like there's this Keynesian economics where you just throw money at something, and I think in 2004 companies like GameStop and Bed Bath & Beyond were potential targets to become multinational corporations. But because Bed Bath & Beyond doesn't actually do well as far as moving countries, because say you're going to like sell stuff in Sweden, you have to compete against IKEA, right? Like, good luck. It's just each country has such specific furniture and everything that it would be hard to kind of have a store like Bed Bath and Beyond. And so I think that they pumped a bunch of money into it to try to see if it could get that scalability, and it didn't. And so then they're like, all right, we're just going to kill it because other companies like Walmart and Amazon are scaling well. And
yep,
but it's a Ponzi where it can't go forever. At some point, once they're fully saturated, companies like Amazon, since they're not profitable because their business model is terminally flawed, they will fail and they will implode on themselves. And that's why I think you had a bunch of smart people like Ryan Peterson from Flexport, Ryan Cohen, Elon Musk. All these people were like, we need to build a system that actually, you know, has unit economics, can actually, it can be a framework that we can build on, so that we can just increase our GDP, that everyone can be better off, because the framework allows us to do more together than by ourselves.
yeah. I think the point, like, you don't uh, crush a company if you don't have another company profiting from it, right? So you will make sure when you destroy one company that there is someone you have stakes in is profiting, right?
Yeah, even like the connection with Wayfair and Bain Capital. A lot of people don't know that Bain Capital, made a bid on Bye Bye Baby. They were before bankruptcy, right? And it was because um, Bain Capital, has Wayfair, right? So they were trying to give specifically of Bed Bath & Beyond part of that to Wayfair. I mean, the same company with Boston Consulting Group. There's a Boston Consulting company called Blue Yonder, and they were an e-commerce fulfillment provider, and they totally screwed over Bed Bath & Beyond. Wayfair made tons of money during the pandemic, and yet Bed Bath & Beyond didn't, even though having the store costs would have been one thing. Like, okay, yeah, if they would have had the equal revenue but then didn't make as much profit because they had the the physical locations they had to deal with. Okay, that makes sense. But there's no reason why Wayfair would have just beat out so badly, Bed Bath and Beyond in e-commerce during the pandemic, because people were remodeling their houses like crazy. And so you can see the evidence of the crime, and it all just supports to this same thing of extracting as much value as they can out of these companies so they can short it into the ground.
I'll give you one, like another table. So this one I made when I was looking into Tupperware. Like you might know, Tupperware was the one of the chairwomen was from BCG, joined like 3 years ago, and then Tupperware was, its stock price pumped at the time in 2021, and then went down until now they fight for bankruptcy. And now here you have, like, for comparison, the table we already saw with G.M.E and BBY, and we see some other companies. So these will all have an F grade on the ROB score, which we'll see later. And I was like comparing all the indicators I showed you. I didn't do it for the lenders, but for the rest, to see if they did impairments, share buybacks. They sometimes they do impairments because their stock price went down, right? They literally write into their filings, we impair our blah blah business because our stock price went down. This is like, I don't know. And you have this share buybacks, you have inventory decrease, sometimes you have an increase, you have like closed stores, and also like how much money is of the operating income spent on stock compensation, where some are pretty high. And also, if you look at the volume turnover here, just for comparison for the year 2020, and I think in brackets the current year, like you see, okay, like companies have a pretty high volume turnover, and also the institutional ownerships in 2020 for those companies is pretty high, right? So it's not like GameStop is such an anomaly that it's kind of there's no other company like it. And yeah, you just see here, okay, that it looks to
What
be
he
like,
seems to be finding is just a pattern of behavior that is
right,
consistent across a bunch of different factors, and some of them take a longer time to look into, whether it's the leases or executive compensation and all these other things, the share turnover, that we just keep coming across these different things. A lot of the companies are, actually going bankrupt. You'll see a stock price at $5, then it goes to 3, then it goes to 1, then they do a reverse split, and we're just kind of looking at it, and then look at all these indicators, and all these indicators keep being the same. But what we'll get into it a little bit is that the the one indicator that just kind of is really the start maybe of deeper research is the return on buybacks, which is the ROB score, and we'll get into it. But this is a lot of the times there's just as Beyond Mythos is saying, we're seeing this with more companies. A lot of them are ignored, and a lot of them go bankrupt. I know we followed some of them, whether it's Party City or Rite Aid. I think Fisker, Joanne Fabrics, whatever it is. Some of them kind of are talked about, and then people kind of forget about it. But if you really look at a lot of these factors that we're going to get into, there just seems to be a very consistent pattern of behavior.
yeah, exactly. Thank you, 6 days. Yeah, right. So like when we did the first market investor, activist market investor DD, we looked at, let's see, items. So I was like, okay, so like to reiterate, like if you have a company which is normally doing just fine, but is like, the first step is to make the company look bad, there might be opportunity for an activist investor to go in and like turn it around, like are seeded. I don't think it's that this easy because you have this whole system working against you. But in theory, you would go in if you see a company with like very high share buybacks, just stop the buybacks, return to profitability, and done. Okay, much harder than I just said, but in theory, you could like watch out for this. And this was like, okay, if you see, for example, just the companies I checked, there were $3 trillion spent on share buybacks with a negative ROB, also return on buyback. So you like spend 3 trillion on buybacks, yielding a negative return, right? This is, well,
I mean, just Bed Bath and Beyond alone did 12 billion worth of share buybacks, and I mean,
yeah,
the thing that a lot of people also don't realize, they you know, I don't know who. Like, anyway, it's just people think kind of one dimensionally when, like, where does the money come from? Like, even like I think J.P. Morgan, right? They did share buybacks, or they're scheduled them, and Virtu Financial, and when you look at it, they just sold bonds. I'm pretty sure both
yeah,
of them just sold bonds, and so it's like, to sell bonds to do share buybacks, that's a terrible idea. I mean, that's I mean, maybe if it was speculative, right? If they're like, okay, well, our stock's going to go up, but also that's kind of insider trading. You can't be like, oh, well, I know our stock's going to go up, so you'd have to say like, oh, our stock's just undervalued. But even then, why would, like, it would have to be undervalued for, the wrong reasons, right? There'd have to be something that's saying it's undervalued. And so you look at like JP Morgan or Virtu, and it's like, are they undervalued? Or are they just loading it up, getting their actual liquidity, the executives leaving, the short sellers targeting it, and just letting it implode and riding it to zero? And that's the problem, is that you to zoom out and see the big picture, to really see the level of the crime, you have to look at the whole thing. How are they
exactly.
doing this?
Yeah, right. And for just here for comparison, like when we talked about the positions sold, not yet purchased, like when I took some like JP Morgan and Citadel Virtual and stuff, and added them up in 2022, and this was like 300 billion, and now we are talking about like an order of magnitude more spent on buybacks. And then like the return on ROB is just like, what's the change in share price. So like with an investment, um, the money you spend, how much is left. And like interestingly, the median, for example, was minus 21%. So of all the companies I looked at, like just if you pick the middle, it was a negative return. So why would you spend money on return on buybacks, right? In the short term, it pushes it pushes your stock price, but in the long term, it tends to be negative. For example, also looking at this 194 companies, of those 60% bought shares more expensive than they are today. So like, yeah, they bought shares back. And if you take naked shorting into account, they kind of bought back shares that never should existed. The share price goes up, retail buys in, and ultimately the company is worth less, right?
I mean, Bed Bath, they
Um,
bought back shares at $44 and then
yeah,
sold them at like 16
yeah,
or something.
What
exactly,
I hadn't
right,
really thought of this before, but it's almost like if they had bought shares in any other company, it would have been better.
Yeah.
If they just
right,
bought the S&P 500, take out bonds, buy the S&P 500, they would might still be, around. It's just a company that is not growing, to take on debt like you were saying, which is risk, to buy back their shares to hopefully prop up price in the short and long term is proven to not work.
But speculation on speculation shouldn't isn't a sustainable business model. That's what caused the crash of 1929 was that if every company is just like, oh, we're just going to invest in the S&P 500, right, like with our money because it's easier to make money than to actually make a product and sell a product, it I don't know, I'm just seeing that this I mean, I agree. I agree that the share buybacks in a comparison, right? Like, and that should be a metric that they hold them accountable for. But I also just think that, like in general, it's weird the whole mentality towards the stock market in just like the evaluations don't make sense, right? Like it should be like so much of like we're gonna have to pay for what uh like how far away from the actual value that has the the stock market has gotten, right? Because these companies, right, like at some
Yeah.
point that money doesn't exist, right? Like if you try to sell, like if everyone tried to get out of their position right now, their investments,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
money wouldn't exist. Like the market cap of something like Nvidia, if it's like $3 trillion, does that money exist if most of those people bought in at way lower prices? And it's I don't think it's there. And um, I think that what one thing we've been seeing, this is kind of just a side note, is that they J.P. Morgan, in fact, like they push through different government programs and whatnot to force everyone to do 401ks. And so then all these companies have to buy stock instead of give annuities, right? Instead of actually just pay out their employees what they're worth, it's like, here's your money for your retirement. They just give them a 401k, which they might get kickbacks from if it's pumping the right stock. And so I don't know. I'm just I think all of this kind of goes together in the fact that most people don't know how the markets work and don't realize how critical everything is on that, because it can just it could just get rug pulled, right? Even the S&P 500 could get rug pulled. And if executives aren't held accountable for their fiduciary duty,
Yeah,
we could just lose companies, and it just,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And if you, for example, look here, like of the companies, I looked at in this research, there were like 64 companies spending 40% or more of their 10-year operating income on share buybacks, $1.7 trillion. So this is kind of like how much of your EBIT or operating income should you be like should you spend on share buybacks, right? This is not growing your business. It's just like, I don't know. Well, on the other side, maybe if you like have a if you have less shares outstanding and you would give out a dividend and there's a high short interest, then somebody has to pay this, like also has to come up with a dividend for the short position, right? So this is one way you could potentially hurt short sellers, but in general, you see like if there is a 60% chance that your buyback will yield a negative return, you should do it. And also, like what you also mentioned is companies are buying back shares at ridiculous prices. They are not buying at the lows, they are buying at the heights. Like if you compare, for example, Warren Buffett, he went like, I think with 50 billion or so share buybacks in 2020 and 2021, while others were like stopping their share buyback programs. Like they stopped their programs, waited until the share price recovered, and then started buying back shares again. Right? This is this is, I don't know. And yeah, and I mapped those companies, for example, here, and there you see like those are just companies which are which have a positive operational income, spending at least 30% of their operating income on buybacks, and the return on buyback is then okay, the return on like on what they spend on their buyback. So if you have companies, for example, GME and BBY were here when Ryan Cohen entered, and so you see you have like not only some companies here, but a lot. And this was only my first post about it, where I scanned like 300 and something companies. I extended it to roughly 600 companies, and you find even more companies there, right? But to make it easier, I was like getting rid of this graph and putting in an easier thing. And like 6day also said, the ROB we introduced to ROB grade, which is just like if you have a ROB score of like nearly minus 100%, like where BBY and GME were at the time, then it gets an F grade, and a D grade if it's like at minus higher than minus 80 and lower than minus 20%, gets a D grade, and C grade, B grade, A grade, and so on. So you see all those companies, and this is the indication we can like look on all those companies. The thesis is that the company will move like in maybe 3 years, one grade down. Like maybe not for B and A grades, I'm not sure, but for the C, D, F grades, thesis is they will go like south, and they will ultimately bankrupt. For example, also a nice finding. Is it okay? I think I closed it. No, here it is. Interestingly, you find one outlier. It's AAL, right? Some airline, and they are like they restocked their inventory. They didn't do any share buybacks recently. They didn't like sell anything, and also their cash flow and income looks pretty strong, right? And I was like, okay, what changed? Because they have an F grade, so they kind of right. They are here, so they over like 10 years they bought back stocks very much higher than they are today. And I was looking into their board, and their board didn't change this much. Like they maybe they have, I don't know, four or five new board members. And then I was looking into, okay, where did the new board members come from? And interestingly, for example, one of the new board members also is with eBay. There, eBay, a D grade. So we won't answer the question today. Who these overpaid executives are, but I think you can see they're not like have one oopsie and the company goes bust, but several times, right? Like we saw with the former BBY CFO. I forgot the company he worked for before, but there was pretty much the same picture as with BBY.
There's a few of those serial,
Yeah.
business killers.
Yeah, I mean that is one thing that we don't know these people personally. They don't look like the villains or crooks, that you were taught when you were a kid. These are personable people with connections, very well connected, very well educated, very well dressed. It's without knowing the people personally, you just kind of look for a pattern of behavior, which is, well, they worked here and this happened, and then they got the job over here. Well, who hired them? And then this happened. And then guess what? They came over here with these other people, and you can kind of start to make a connection, who is being placed, because I think that a lot of these board members and executives, they don't all, they're not all complicit. It doesn't, you don't have to have 100% bad actors to destroy a company. It could just be a few very convincing um, uh, board members or executives that just, hey, our stock price is down. Well, everybody knows if you do a share buyback, they go up because there's less supply, right? Ask all your friends. Most people would agree with that, and they would say, good idea, go for it. So I think that it's hard to know without knowing these people personally. They all have families, they have histories, they went to, some of the best schools, and so we really don't know that. But just going to this chart, the one thing that is so brilliant about it is just that plot graph, and just the grade of being an F. It's almost like short interest. When you say, okay, well, which companies have the highest short interest? Well, we know back in 2021, it was self-reported short interest was GameStop and Bed Bath and Beyond, and those happen to be the ones that Ryan Cohen bought. But this grade, it is a very it's an actual a number that we can calculate, that we can graph. And then when you put it on there, and someone has an F grade, and you just kind of go through the chart and you do hundreds of companies this way, it really shines a light. It doesn't necessarily mean that the company is definitely being destroyed from the inside, but it is it really allows you to weed out the companies quickly, and then just really start to dig into them deeper, because the amount of effort that he has put in to look at some of these other indicators, whether it's leases, and we're, just talking about all this other stuff. Really where it starts is with this return on buyback score. If someone has an F, we say, okay, now we start digging. Now who are these people? And it saves a lot of time, and really, it makes things more efficient. And it's something that anybody can look at. That one graph that he's got, I've taken it, the plot graph, and I just circled GameStop, and I circled Bed Bath and Beyond, and I go, look at this. Look at this. It's very obvious that both of them happen to fall right in there, and so it's something that I'm very excited about. It's something that he's worked on very hard, and I believe it's something that someone can look at, and 5 seconds later they can, you can come to a calculation and just really start getting an idea if a company is possibly being destroyed from the inside. And so I'm very excited about it, and I'll let you guys go on. But I think the grade, the A to F that he just kind of went over really quick, and also that plot graph. I mean, that's really that's really why we're here. What we're talking about. That is the meat of what we're talking about as far as a visual graphic.
And like you said, not everyone on the board is the mastermind of this heist, of these heists, but that would make them useful idiots, I guess. But that's the problem is that it's really complicated. Who is the what because there's something called business deference, which is that basically it's hard to hold. Ever since Jack, oh shoot, what's his the guy, the CEO from General Electric, I forgot his last name, but ever since him, they basically gave a lot of freedom to board members to not have liabilities if they mess up, just so that they could try and pump the whole economy. That was all the way back in the 70s, and this kind of deregulation sort of era, which a certain amount of deregulation is important, but the thing is that with share buybacks, it's hard to know what the value of Jack Welch. Yeah, thanks, Phil. So it's hard to know what the value of it is in before you do it. I think it's a lot easier than other people might say. It's like if you don't have the money, don't do it, right? Which is why I think that doing something like a dividend instead of a share buyback is just a better idea, because it's like, hey, we have extra cash that we don't have anything necessarily to invest in that's going to be better. And because if they're trying to keep the share price the same, well, if you just offer a dividend, that gives someone an exact number of how much that share is worth, so you can exactly peg that
Yeah.
to it. You announce the dividend at a certain amount and people will buy it, and that price will go right there. So you don't have to have like, oh, this complicated, we're going to sell bonds and then we're going to do share buybacks so that we can hopefully get the price right here. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. And so they're covering up the crime and making it under this business deference umbrella of safety. Meanwhile, the only people that really know what's going on, and if you look at Bed Bath & Beyond, they always had one member of the board ever since 2002 that was from Goldman Sachs. And Goldman Sachs was the one doing the share buybacks. And so, that member of the board, and it changed. There's two different people through the time period of Bed Bath & Beyond. That member of the board was actually getting like a cut of the money from the share buybacks because they were pushing them forward, right? This crime goes really deep and is really messed up, and that should be totally illegal because that's a definite conflict of interests.
Yeah, you make a good point about the liability, because if I was a board member and I don't agree, and with a handful of other people, and they're really pushing for something and I don't think it's a good idea, but I also know that I'm not going to be held accountable if they're wrong. It's like, how hard are you going to push back? It's if you're being overwhelmed by the group, if you speak up too much, they're just going to kick you off, which is fine. But then they're just going to replace you with someone that's going to agree with them. And so I think that you're onto something with that limited liability of making the wrong decision. It probably makes whoever's most vocal and most passionate about an idea is probably going to be the one that gets their way, and everybody else might just be willing to fall in line, even if they think it's the wrong decision.
And what are the odds that Bed Bath & Beyond got rid of their dividend, but they didn't get rid of the share buybacks, right? If you can't afford the dividend, why can you afford the share buybacks? And it was because of all the counterfeit shares that were out there. That dividend would have revealed them, because the people short the stock would still have to pay that dividend. And
Yeah,
so
you
you can
make a
just see the
great point
crime.
there.
Yeah,
I didn't even think of that. That's a great point, because even though they can afford the cash, they've still got to fork it up, fork it over. If you pay back $5 a share and there are, all these phantom entitlements or whatever you want to call them, they got to come up with $5, a share. So,
exactly.
whereas opposed to what you're saying, burning the cash the other way doesn't require them to do that.
Just shortly extending on what you said, 6 days. I think this table or this grade can really help to start digging. It's not necessarily that a company is really bad, but you can start digging, and you can for example, as an activist investor, you can think of, okay, does something fit my profile, and do I want to target a company on here? Then you can look on it and start digging, and probably have deep value in it. And also, as a shareholder in a in a more just world, you would have you could say hey, come on, what did you do with the money? Why did you rob the company of liquidity, and where all the assets gone? Hey, come on, guys. But yeah, that's not possible today, but maybe in the future, I don't know. And giving you one example of what is possible with the media and with counterfeit shares, just as a short I dug into BuzzFeed and their past, and I was finding also excessive media coverage. For example, you had one volume spike in January 2023, right? So is the graph somewhere here? You see, for example, doesn't really help. Here you see, for example, the BuzzFeed volume turnover. You don't see much going on. You see one big spike here, like so.
I mean,
And you
the little
have
mini DDs that he's put together.
yeah.
I don't know how many you've done now, maybe about 15. I would come across
I'm
stuff, whether it's Tupperware, Rumble, or BuzzFeed or whatever. I would send it like, hey, can you look at this one? Because he's doing a tremendous amount of work, and then consolidating it in just like a little Twitter post. And it's just like he's got the shared turnovers. He's got the Rob score, and he's got a handful of other things. It's really like a quick read, that he's consolidated. And so again, neither one of us has a huge audience, but try to shout it out. And if someone's talking about BuzzFeed or wherever, try to link it. Like, hey, if you want to really know what's going on that you might not know about, check this out. And so, how many have you done? Maybe about 15.
I'm not sure. Maybe more. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe more.
I have
There's a handful.
like.
They're very interesting. They're great reads, and
Thank you. Yeah.
again, I think he's ahead of his time, and that this, we had talked about it before. The Rob, is it the Rob score? Is it the Rob grade? Is it 1 to 5? Is it 1 to 100? And then really when he decided, to go A to F, it was just, if you get an F, that's most people know what that means. Where as if he had said, oh, well, this one company has a 30 and this one company has a 20. Well, those are both Fs. But what does it really mean? And so I think that he did a really good job of simplifying it and just making it very simple to understand.
And that's the thing is that people have a metric they're looking at, but it's not a big picture metric. For example, Phil brought up that share buybacks lower the denominator of the EPS ratio, the earnings per share, allowing executives to claim improved company performance without actually increasing the earnings of the company, right? I mean, but like that's stupid. If like if you think with one number, you're manipulating one number and you think like, oh, we did better, and it's like, no, like what is the like what's the future
What's
of the
actually
company?
happening? We want to know what's
Yeah.
happening. Is the company growing or shrinking?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, oh, like to be taller, I just stepped on a stool. It's like that doesn't make you taller. That makes it more likely you're going to fall over, right? So it's just, I think that we kind of have to. A lot of people are scared of business. Either they're like, oh, I don't like. I mean, I was that way. I was like, I don't like business. It's just like the whole idea of it's just business. Like I hated that motto. Like just the moral part of me just didn't want anything to do with business. I only got into stocks just because I bought into a company I thought was good, which was actually Intel, because I knew a lot about it. And then it just tanked, and I was like, why is it tanking? And so then it just sent me down this whole rabbit hole of like, what's really going on like in these companies, and it's just it. So a lot of people don't want to go down that rabbit hole. They don't want to figure out. They'd rather just stay in their own lane. But the thing is that there's idiots out there literally just trying to manipulate one number. Like, oh yay, we're gonna manipulate the EPS. People are gonna buy in because like we're gonna post that on our next earnings, and they're gonna buy in, and then we're gonna short it down. And it's like, what the heck?
Yeah, let me just add to this. Like, this is what I found with BuzzFeed, right? You have a company which market cap on, like, in 2023, January 25 was 132 million. April, it was 33 million, right? So, and I found, like, on 2 days, on January 26th and 27th, they traded over $1 billion, like, with a company which has this little market cap, right? And this is exactly the spike we saw here, and this uptick already also in price. So, and it was also accompanied by a heavy media push. I found like it's like always 5 to 7 or even more, like Bazinga, how they like like MSM and all the big outlets, and calling like, oh, okay, it's going up, and they are really hyping it. So, and then they are able to like roughly 10x trade the market cap, right? And then you can and you see also a failure to delivery push. So it's probably not someone buying the share and selling it and buying and selling, but it's more like like also counterfeit shares and like market makers profiting from it, right? So this just as I found this very interesting as comparison what is possible if you can like create hype around a like very small market cap stock. And I think here, but this is I don't know what will come of it. Like the breach of fiduciary duty lawsuit against the former directors of BBY. I think even like if we all get the money and like some of us maybe trying to also go activist in this style, then they may start here.
Actually,
but also
I actually have a guest real quick. I'm gonna pull on. Hey, what's up, player?
Cool.
Hey, what's up, brother? Can you hear me? I'm at the gym right now, just lifting weights. I'll turn my camera off, but just so you know, it's the real me.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good to see you. I'm sure a lot of people will be excited to see your face.
Yeah, I'm repping 135 pounds on shoulders.
Say what?
I was having a hard time hearing what he was saying. There was some background noise.
Oh.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm sorry about that. Can you guys hear me better now?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I saw just randomly your YouTube was up, and then I'm at the gym right now. Sorry if it's really loud. I can mute it, but I saw on the screen it said BuzzFeed, and it's so funny because in reference to BuzzFeed, Bill Pulte, William J. Pulte, respectively, he bought in around like $2.90 average, and then you have Vivek Ramaswamy who's doing the activist investor thing as well as William J. Pulte, and then I've been a huge fan of this gentleman named Patrick Bet-David because he's like a very like masculine alpha type of male, and he talks about being obsessed. In life, there's people who just kind of like put in a little bit and just hope for the best, and then there's people who
Oh no.
like
the feds got him.
Yeah, I think we lost him.
But it's awesome to see him again. I thought he was like missing in action for some time, right?
Who was it? I wasn't sure.
So his name's Plur. Oh, we lost
nice.
Plur. Hopefully
yeah, no, I recognize his name. That's kind of how we, started, some of the companies that Beyond Mythos was checking out. It was just names that came up, and it's like anytime a stock comes up and I look at the price and it's like $2 and it, used to be $20, it's always like, can you look at this one? There's anything that just kind of keeps popping up, and BuzzFeed was one of them.
Yeah.
You back, Plur?
Oh yeah, sorry. I disconnected. I was trying to cook, but I'm not sure if I got disconnected. But long story short, the people who become obsessed with stuff, which is like guys like yourself, as well as on the upper echelon of things like Patrick Bet-David, Vivek Ramaswamy, William J. Pulte. I mean, recently there was a stream a friend linked to me where William J. Pulte on a plane is like 8 to 10 minutes long. He was by himself. But at the end, he said, "Let's make some money." And then in reference to BuzzFeed, just a couple of days ago, there's like a film with Vivek Ramaswamy on a plane saying like, "Hey, I'm going to go to Los Angeles. I'm the second biggest share owner."
Yeah, he is. And I was like, maybe Plur, if you have,
in reference to the strike.
Oh no, you're glitching out.
Maybe I'll just.
Hey, let me see if I can go outside and see if it'll be better. I'll call you guys back.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, when you were talking earlier, Michael, about, just, how you even got into this. You knew something about Intel, you bought Intel. It didn't work out how you thought, but it didn't make any sense. I think most of us have a similar story, which is just the belief that things didn't make sense needed to be looked at. But then you also have people that are just insanely curious and also very persistent. And it's just the combo of those things. I think that's really, one thing that binds the community together, which is just, the keep asking questions until there's no more questions to be asked, and just to not, just to be persistent, inconsistent, and curious. And so I just keep finding that everybody's got a similar story to the one that you've got.
And and you can see that, one data point isn't a trend, right? Two might not be either, even though it's definitely definitely a theory, right? When you're like, okay, well, on this chart you have Bed Bath and Beyond, and you have GameStop right there on the, on the graph. And it's like, what do you know? You have BuzzFeed, and you have the same people, that are around GameStop, Bed Bath and Beyond, and BuzzFeed is Pulte, right? And so, just this idea of trying to build, build back, like these companies that have been that people have profited tearing them down, that someone's gonna make money building them back.
I think you like there. For example, I was working on a network of like overpaid executives. I'm not sure if I want to release it, because I think if you release something like that, there are many names on it, and they probably won't like me. And I think also Bill is very cautious to kind of call out names directly, other than like obvious names like Triton or what have you. But you normally find, if you dig into these F-grade company, like also Success said, not everybody on the board is bad, but there are some people who have a history being on boards for companies which then went south and went bankrupt or ended in a merger or something. So, but I think this is an open question. So, who are those overpaid executives, and do they leave only one company in shambles or several? Also, another open question I think, which is worth asking, is: are there more real activist investors like RC? I did a short, like with Barnes and Nobles. We found Toro 18 Holdings. Also, thank you 6 days for putting my attention to it. They're like right around the corner of Icon's office. So I'm like, and they have a track record. I also interestingly found other activist investors which bankrupt companies. Mittag is one. Really interesting. Like, they call themselves activist investor, and they go in and say, we want to do everything good for the shareholders, and nearly every company they enter is now bankrupt. One of their latest additions is the Children's Place, PLC or something. It's also there. They're on the F grade right there, the third last. I think also another question is then, like, do we find
Hey,
more patches?
random one for you guys. Can you guys hear me better? I went outside.
Yeah, you sound better.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Do you guys mind if I talk for a little bit? Because
Yeah,
I need
go
to
for
get
it.
back to my
Yeah, go for it.
workout. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, yeah. And again, like going back to BuzzFeed, I don't know how much I was stuttering before or whatever, but the fact that you guys kind of mentioned before, it's like you got people like William J. Pulte, Vivek Ramaswamy, and then you have alpha type males who are just like well in the know, and they're well off, and they're very intelligent, high IQ guys like Patrick Bet David, uh, putting their money into things, and then the fact that they put their money into things, such as BuzzFeed, and then Vivek Ramaswamy, a couple of days ago, going on that aircraft, that flight, and then essentially putting video out saying like, "Hey, on my way to Los Angeles, I'm gonna get stuff done." And then he landed, and then he went to Anaheim, and then from there on, who knows what happened. BuzzFeed's obviously hit some lows. Bill Pulte, he's in, I think, at about and again, correct me if I'm wrong, like a $2.90 average ish. And then just trying to catch the macro environment. I think BuzzFeed, in my opinion, is probably a decent investment right now. When it comes to the strikes, again, not trying to be an options gambler. I have about 50 calls for BuzzFeed personally, and the reason being is because the implied volatility looks kind of low, and I'm just trying to catch it while things are looking on the up and up, especially with activist investors looking like they want to get stuff done. And then you mentioned Bill Pulte, with Bill Pulte mentioning recently something. And again, I have no social media. The only time I get stuff is when people are nice enough to text me anything, or if I just Google something, I see something. But William J. Pulte recently said something along the lines of like the stuff with Bed Bath Beyond, and it should never happen again. So whether things work out for Bed Bath Beyond or not, I'm a dreamer could dream, and I pray it works out. But at the same time, regardless, I have to keep moving on with my life, kind of thing, and still look at other avenues, if that makes sense. And in reference to that, though, it's a positive statement by Bill Pulte, in my opinion, to say, the whole Triton thing should never happen again. Because if people like William J. Pulte and Vivek Ramaswamy and Patrick Bet-David and these guys are looking to get into these companies and aggressively like shape the battlefield, for lack of better terms, it seems like there's a strategic directioning going on that's just never been heard of before, because they're sick and tired of seeing companies get manipulated, and us retail shareholders as well as themselves losing value year over year, because people are just destroying companies on purpose, or just working the system in their favor. And I'm one of those guys that believes, I don't really see the world in like good or bad. I just think there's policy and procedure, and the world is gray. And if there's policy and procedure in place that allows for corruption, people are gonna, to do the things that they need to make money. But if we have activist investors, essentially working toward goals that are similar to ours, I will always support that. And that's all I have. Unless you guys have.
That's what Ryan Cohen said, actually, in an interview. He says that it's really sad that most executives don't buy stock in their own company and don't add value. But he says also where there's he said less than 10% actually buy shares of their own company, but he says that actually creates opportunity for other people like him. And so this is kind of like an opportunity chart for people, because especially if there was crime, right? If you're going to start a company anyway, and then you find one that has short interest that might be over 100%, it's an extra incentive to start there to build a company, because taking a company public is difficult and takes a lot of time. So it's like, well, why not just take over one that's already been shorted into the ground, has all the structure there, and fix it up, and then you'll get an added bonus.
The last thing I was going to share too is like, we always make these assumptions, and again, I get the tweets with like Boston Consulting Group, it smells like shit. And again, like I said, like processes and procedures, policy have allowed these consulting groups to kind of like take advantage of. It's easier, right? It's easier to do that than to be a builder. But to be fair, I was reading a Ask Me Anything from William J. Pulte on Superstonk. You could just like Google Bill Pulte, Ask Me Anything, and it's kind of funny because people have had good experiences with consulting groups before. So just because something is a consulting group doesn't necessarily mean bad. I think it's just like, you just pray that someone's interests are in your interest. And the reason why I mentioned Boston Consulting Group is because I am invested in a company. It's called Grove Collaborations, and the current CEO, essentially, he's a Harvard graduate. He's also a prior BCG guy. But at the same time, you got people like Larry Chang, for example. He just invested into Grove. Was it $25 million? He accepted to pay $1.90 a share when the price of the Grove is like $1.40, $1.30. I got in at $1.29. And what I'm in the outlook, I think long term for Grove is looking good. And the reason why I'm investing in Grove is because their Instagram is growing year over year. On top of, I liked Larry Chain's comparison, so I'm a big GNC guy, and I just started buying a lot of my weightlifting products from Grove recently. And the thing I like about it is the fact like they have like all natural products, and then they sell protein with like apparently healthy or mercury free and like all that kind of stuff. So like we live in a time where I think where people are starting to take notice to like what's going inside them. And the thing I like about Grove is it's attacking that audience. And I think it's still kind of new. I think there's a targeted audience for it. And that's why I think Grove may be successful in the future. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, the CEO is a prior, BCG/Harvard kind of guy. But at the same time, it's you at the same time you got to judge people based off results, and it seems like he's kind of moving the company forward. And at the same time, Volition Capital is putting more and more money into that company. So I'm hoping that Volition Capital is able to shape the battlefield in that situation. Pending questions, all I have about growth.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with the idea about consultants. It's that it's for me, it's just something that I would look into, right? It's not something I would like immediately prejudice. It has led to seeing lots of kind of nefarious sort of behavior, but also, I mean, I remember right when I graduated med school, someone was like, "Oh, you could," I was looking at different options, and someone was like, "Oh, you could go make some decent money at McKinsey Consulting," and I was like, "What even is that?" Right? So, I mean, like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I didn't actually apply, but it's just kind of funny to think that, like, I don't know. I think each company goes through cycles, that you usually have a founder at the beginning of a company and they have a real vision, and it inspires people, and it takes off. Any company that's kind of actually kind of made it, they had to have had something inspiring about them. And then you get people who weren't the founders take over, and they don't know how to add value to the company. All they can do is extract value out of their own company or someone else's company. And so I think that it goes through a life cycle, and then when when that company implodes, well, then you see someone else as a founder come in and be like, oh, that's worth fixing up and making better. So I hope that some of these bigger consultant agencies are in that turning around phase of the life cycle. I mean, someone that I really like, he's working with a lot of people from PricewaterhouseCooper. I was like, I mean, very sussed out by all the companies that they work with, but I really trust this guy, and I'm sure he's working with genuine people, right? Because it's a huge thing, right? There's lots of people that work for companies like that. All it takes is a few people at the top that are doing the nefarious stuff to have a huge impact, but it doesn't make the whole thing bad.
And I hope what Bruce said is right, like that. We'll see more and more activist investors, like maybe Toro 18 Holdings. I'm not sure yet, but and Vivek and Pulte and all the other guys, like going through these companies, maybe on the list, maybe seeing other patterns. When going through, like, you see so many things. The most obvious and the one to start with was with those share buybacks, but you see also a lot in acquisitions, which looks strange. Also, like the BuzzFeed. Plura, if you have the time, just read the mini DD I did about BuzzFeed. You see that I'm not sure, they did a SPAC merger instead of an IPO, and I would say they pushed their acquisition price, and maybe they lured in institutional holdings to like release them later. Also with the thing I showed with where they did like over 1 billion on 2 trading days with a stock which has a very small market cap. And also all this sell and lease back things, pretty interesting. And I think what also needs to be mentioned, Michael, to your point, I think with the companies on those lists, it's not only the high short interest, but rather if you remove not value adding things from the companies, like paying dividends, very high compensation, and share buybacks, then at least then you need to check, like, can the company become profitable if I remove them? And if you can do so, then you don't need to change anything. You wouldn't even need to to add an online channel or something. You just would have to remove some of the bad acting, and yeah, that would make you probably a pretty valuable board member to return value to the shareholders, regardless if it's shorted or not.
Yeah, that's absolutely a really good point. In having the right people on the board at the right time. Obviously, what I'm saying is like probably the sky is blue, right? But the thing that's cool about people like Vivek Ramaswamy or people like Patrick McDavid and then the people who in William J. Pulte is they get so obsessed with things that they can't sleep at night. They think about whatever objectives they're trying to achieve, like to an extent that's just kind of insane to the average person. And let me share this with you as I'm in a time in my life where I'm in a transition. I've been in a certain career field, and I'm looking at my options to the next step in my life. The world that I'm in right now is the only world that I know, but I have a very various amount of experience. But my whole life I've worked about with like people who are hard chargers, type A personalities. If there's a complex problem to solve, you do everything just like you guys. You guys are problem solvers and you guys are obsessed and making and you write this awesome DD and no one's paying you for it. I mean, one could argue it's a waste of time, but then philosophically you say, well, if thinking like that, what's the point of life? Everything's a waste of time, right? But if you enjoy it, you enjoy it. And so I went to a hiring event recently. It was a hiring event for SpaceX. And the thing that's wild about SpaceX, even based off the recruiters, is the fact they're headhunting certain individuals. And you guys could argue like Elon Musk, like right? He's the guy at the top at SpaceX, and he kind of sets the intent or the climate for that company. And everyone that I met two recruiters and one guy that's like an engineer that works there. And the thing is like this, they say like only 1% to 2% of people that are that apply are actually recruited on the team. But those stats are kind of off because they essentially kind of get who they want to get because you either fit the mold or you don't. But the thing is like these kind of people, Elon Musk is like they have such a high standard and such a high expectation for performance. It's like if you become like one or a partner or a worker or employee for one of these founders, you essentially put yourself in a position to be around winners. So what I'm trying to say is like if we have these winners like Vivek Ramaswamy and Patrick McDavid and stuff going into boards, or at least people that they endorse going into boards in the future of stocks that we're looking to own, going into 2025 and above, I think we're in good hands because these guys are winners and they're so aggressive. And like SpaceX, when I was talking to him, like you don't join that company to skate. You don't work for Elon Musk and those teams and not expecting to be at work 12 to 14-hour days. It's like they have to build 150 satellites a day or whatever it is. You know what I mean? It's like they have these crazy timelines that they have to hit, and no one else could do what they do. No one on this planet, no government on this planet, no other company on this planet. Like, and if these other guys are similar to Elon Musk in the way that he runs things, I just see the future. The amount of efficiency going into 2025 to 2030 with these type of personalities, uh, it is again like no better time to be alive than now. And the thing that's funny about the Ryan Cohen tweet, which was I think July 2022, if I'm off, I'm sorry, is he said that about a week or 2 weeks after Jake Freeman, you know, wrote the letter to the board with the bond arbitrage play, and then 2 weeks after that, Ryan Cohen said, no better time to be alive than now. And then even just recently, Elon Musk is saying no better time to be alive than now. You have all these guys who are motivators, hard chargers. Uh, they meet the timelines and they're obsessed with winning. And these are the guys who are going to be, essentially, if things work out, running things from 2025 and beyond. And at the end of the day, what's going to happen is the stocks that we own are going to go up, hopefully, and we're not going to be scrounging and praying that we could, it sucks. It sucks when I put money in stocks, and every year it fucking goes down. You know what I mean? I'm like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
But to have these guys in the future, work for us instead of working against us, it is honestly the greatest time to be alive. And the funny thing is a year ago, I didn't even know the world was working against me. You know what I mean? And then because you guys put in this work for free, this volunteer service, and then you have people like William J. Pulte and others who are taking shit from all these different people every fucking single day. It's like I don't even understand how they handle that stress. It's just too much for the normal person, but they're taking it because I think they see the bigger picture. I think they see the light, and then they know there's hope. And because of people like them, I have hope in the future too. And I appreciate those kind of guys like the Victor Guamasangis, Poltes, and the Patrick Bet Davids and the Ryan Cohens. And then at the same time, I enjoy people like you guys for essentially you guys get beat up for what you do, and you guys are doing it all for free. You know what I mean? You guys got nothing to gain. You only got reputations to lose, and you guys are still doing this. And you guys are fucking heroes to me. And that's my 2 cents on that. Thanks.
Thanks. Well, I mean, I want to live in a better world,
Thank
so
you.
that's why I do it. I mean, I had someone today, it was weird. He seemed like we was on the same team, but still like attacking me. And I'm like, I'm literally here because, I believe in a better world. Like I'm not here to be some kind of newscaster or whatever. Like, even this, right? Beyond Mythos had a great kind of revelation as far as how to look at stocks that could be activist candidates. And so it's like if I can help give a platform, I don't know how much that's going to help, but I just look for the builders and I try to support them, and I look for the people that are tearing things down, and as much as I can stop them, I'm going to, because like we all have to sleep in the bed we made, and it's not enough to. There's no where you can. We don't live in an isolated in a vacuum, right? We have to deal with other people, and if we don't identify the builders and support them, all we're going to be stuck with is people that tear stuff down. So I appreciate you, Blair, for seeing that we're out here building, and you came to join us while you're just doing your workout. So appreciate you.
Yeah, and appreciate everything you said. Like I totally agree that for example, the stock market shouldn't be the way it is, and also like the companies shouldn't be the way they are, right? So if you have all these overpaid executives, I was wondering why Ryan Cohen was so like busy telling us about overpaid executives until I began to dig, and this is just one perspective. There are many more, I think, and if this can help some people to get curious about it and dig themselves, that's all I hope for, because like if our plays turn out, that would be great. If there would be more Ryan Cohens, right?
I think there will be.
Yeah, definitely. One thing for me, I agree. I think that American wealth is being robbed, and the American dream that we were taught and that we saw and that we grew up with, or for some of us, we're on the younger end of that. That's gone. The the teacher who could buy a single family house and raise two kids and have two cars and take 2 weeks vacation and not be drowning in credit card debt is gone. And I think that this is a big part of that. We're talking about, this is really all of America's assets. It's, if you talk about the trillions of dollars in the stock market and how everybody has handed over custody without really knowing, the indirect holding system where our own money can be used to take our own money from us. I believe that that's where it went. And this is just so big. It's the biggest thing. And I never thought that I would be a part of it. And it's a lot of fun for me because it is a massive, insanely difficult problem. And the other side has all the money. They can influence
Yeah.
the media. They can they can kick us off of Reddit. They can hire people to just attack us constantly and try to make fun of us and do all these other things. But in the end, we know we're right, and we know that this is the biggest thing. And uh, and I'm having a heck of a lot of fun figuring it out. And really, what I want to see all my friends, all the curious, persistent people that see what I see. I want them to get paid so that they can spend their time uh, doing this on a deeper level, having a greater impact, because the the it won't be a level playing field, but it is so unlevel right now. The people that are on here don't have the money that Wall Street has, and the hedge funds and the market makers and all this other stuff. But if these our friends, if they get tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, it's going to be a heck of a lot of fun. And I really want the people to have what they need in order to bring this to everybody's attention, because everybody is just drowning in credit card debt and student loan debt and medical debt and all these other things. And the fact that everybody's spending all their own free time to work on this stuff really says something. But I really hope soon, or soon enough, that people get paid so that they can do this right.
I think we are getting paid right now, actually. We just hit an all-time or a day high for GameStop. It's up, I think, 10% now, and the volume is over 10 million, which is about, I think, 3 times. We're at 2252, so we're 9.5% on the day, and our volume's at 11 million, which is, yeah, I mean, I think the volume maybe on Friday was like 3 million. So we're almost at 4x the volume, and volume typically or possibly precedes price movement. So I think this might just be the first step on another move up. So I think that
I,
wealth transfer is happening, and I'm really excited.
I'm so much agreeing with everything
Yeah.
Cesar said, and I want to add, like, it's also fun to bring the knowledge out there, because, like, for example, some of my friends said, "Oh, look at Tupperware, they missed also the going online," and I showed them some figures, and they were like, "Okay, they spent money for buyback, they reduced their inventory. What was going on there?" And it's a it's it's a completely different story than they thought was going on. And it's just so interesting that this is happening. It's like, yeah, it's
And that's a good example, right? Because the business deference, it gives a lot of flexibility to board members to try to make the right decision or whatever. And like, oops, I messed up. And it's like, let's see,
yeah,
like, ask anyone. If you're a company in, I don't know, 2015 or whatever, you haven't already really done the online thing, as they said in Bed Bath and Beyond, like, oh, we didn't do the online thing. Like, would it be better to spend money on share buybacks or do the online thing? Like, I think it's quite obvious. I mean,
Yeah.
Ryan
Great
Cohen
point.
was doing the online thing like before the online thing was a thing. That was like his first job was he was, I mean, he went to go, I don't know, somewhere in the Caribbean or something, and work on some e-commerce stuff. And so like it's I mean, that was when he was a kid, right? And so I just think like it's crazy that these executives can't be held accountable when it's so obvious what they should have been doing and they just didn't.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
like
don't.
So you're right.
yeah,
You're right. You're right. You're right in that it's common sense. For example, bringing up Bed Bath Beyond, trying. He's looking at historics. Then you had Holly Etlin. She came in, and essentially she said like, and what Holly Etlin and others, PCGL, LeBeau, all those fancy lawyers that actually understand bankruptcies as we try our best to understand. Totally brand new language, by the way. But what Holly Ellen mentioned, I remember, is the fact like it references something like Bed Bath Beyond that had like square footage that's way too much based off what they had, and then they just constantly reopened. I remember talking to you about this maybe a year, 2 years ago. But like they kept opening up stores. They'd open up another store. They'd open up another store, and Holly Ellen says like every in elementary kind of like junior varsity level in their world would be you open up a new store for every 2 to 3 stores you close. Especially Holly Anlin even mentioned it was like 20 from 2019, even though he had the COVID thing, but they essentially knew at 2019 to at least 2025 for retail specifically, macro wise, it was going to go down. So you have like these professionals know at a macro level, retail's kind of shit, and essentially they just kept opening up another store, another store, another store. Holly Etland said it should be like 3 to 1. For every 3 stores you close, you may open one in an area with a lease that's like a good price. You know what I mean? And it seems like not just the buybacks, but also opening stores. On top of that, it was just like it got out of control. It's just so crazy. There's so many micro decisions to the point where it's like I remember a long time ago being in Discord, and it seems like the Hudson Bay thing. Everything always comes back to the Hudson Bay thing. And I remember St. Patrick's Day, where it was like on a Friday, and Sue Gove like rug pulled Hudson Bay, and then immediately after that, she says, "Oh, we're gonna look to do a reverse stock split type of thing." And then the price went from like $1.07 to like 70 cents. It's just like as I was seeing it happen live, right? Because I've been in this. I had Bad Bath Beyond shares starting in essentially July 2022, and then I just kind of keep up as best I can. I have no social media, so I keep up as best I can. But that Hudson Bay time period was when I realized I was like, man, every decision Sue Go and then even trying before her are just doing the most wackiest shit in the world. And again, you could have took it one of 2 ways. I guess I took it the way I was like, oh, she's doing wacky shit because this is a 40 fucking chess play. Or you could have took it as, you know what? This is a controlled demolition. What the fuck is going on? You know what I mean? Which I guess either way, shit just wasn't right.
Yeah, and then you think about like the obvious question of like how much was the physical penetration of Bed Bath and Beyond back in 2019, right? And how much was the digital penetration? Like obviously they needed to focus on the digital side, right? And instead they why were they expanding physically? Well, because then they could if they bought properties, then they were going to lease them back, and so that's you can see that the motive obviously wasn't business judgment. Like it was a crime. They were like, we're going to use this money, buy all these properties, and then we're going to sell them to our friends for literally a quarter of what they're worth, and that's like that's not sustainable. Like I don't know. It's so weird that we let this huge heist happen from all these companies that could have easily responded, like Bed Bath and Beyond, GameStop, and yet we gave all that market cap to, or allowed to be given to Amazon, right? Who their model doesn't work. And I'm just glad that people kind of heroically have stood up and invested a lot of time. I mean, Roaring Kitty was, doing is fighting the good fight before having any good results for a long time, and same with us. I mean, when I first joined Bed Bath and Beyond, I thought it was going to be a couple months at most. I did not think it was going to be this long.
Yeah, exactly. It's especially hard if you are like kind of left in the dark, right? So it's yeah, it's a long time, but as I tried to show, the opposite side is also playing a game which is about years, sometimes a decade. Like, yeah, I think, yeah. I also wrote some mini DD about AMC, which is also pretty interesting. You see the debt they took on and for the acquisitions they made, which was really not possible to pay back. So, yeah, there's a lot going on. I just wondering, like, I would have like 10 more minutes. Are there any questions or something we should clarify?
I'm
Otherwise,
kind of
yeah.
curious about Disney. I didn't see that on the list, but I'd be curious where
Hey
Disney
guys,
was.
I'm gonna head out, but thank you for your time. I appreciate you guys. I'm gonna keep listening though.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah,
Love you,
thank you,
man.
Blue.
Yeah.
Really cool.
So,
I
I'm
think
I'm
this is it's yeah, this like right above eBay.
Oh, it is on there. Oh,
Yeah,
see, that's the crazy thing. I knew it was going to be on there. Why? Because there was someone. I remember Pulte posted that there was an activist campaign, and I looked into it on Disney, and then it didn't work. It didn't actually go through, and that was like, I don't know, geez, 6 months ago or so. And then he posted again that they tried again, and it did work. So, I mean, that's I don't know. It's just I think you're really onto something. I think also just as far as us, knowing that until there is an activist, it will have some downside potential. That's something I wish I would
exactly.
have learned beforehand. So if there's something on this list that's not hasn't the bottom hasn't dropped out. I don't know that the best thing is to bet against it, just because you'd have to know when it's like there's a stock. It's a hospital. Oh shoot. Um, man. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
that
I know the
you know
one
which one I'm
also
talking about.
Pulte was. Yeah, I think I know it. I shortly looked into it.
Also,
It was
GameStop's trying to run right as the finish. Sorry, I'm like super distracted, just like pumping up
that's
to 2263. But yeah, like someone was saying there was like this hospital where there was a bunch of fraud, and it, but the amount of time before that gets exposed or any, oh, it's redacted. There we go. Oh, um, so by the time that kind of fraud gets exposed, it you might lose a lot of the value of your options. Like I lost a lot of money betting against Nvidia. I Nvidia was at like 135 or something back in like May, or 138 I think it was, and I was like the 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 CEO had just sold a bunch of shares, and so I bet against it, and then it just ripped. I was like, well, apparently the CEO is selling lots of shares is bullish, and it just kept ripping, and I just got absolutely decimated on like a way big short position. Like I mean, it made a lot of money, right? If I would have just done it like 2 weeks later, because I was right. It was overvalued at like 138. It had to come back down and test, test like $100, but it takes a while for these crimes to be exposed. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess that's just something to be mindful on this list, is if you're finding things that are a D or an F, just look for maybe signals that either A, it is reached its kind of book value or like really bottomed out, and that they're not in a risk of, diluting, or, reverse split type of stuff. Just because, I mean, they're ruthless. Like I think that all these companies, I mean, a lot of them know that they have a certain life cycle, and so they're going to try and profit from the whole thing. And I think that they've shorted, like they might be in some of these companies too deep already to let it turn
Yeah.
around.
Yeah. I think there was one time when Elon Musk said like Tesla is the most shorted company. I did also a short DD about it and compared it, and I think it's depending on the metric. But I think the price movement you saw the last like 4 years, it's kind of I'm not sure if shorts were really burned or if the price movement was like they targeted a really high price, made people buy in at the top and then lowered the price again and did this for the last like 3 years and profit of this. So like if you think also of this list, and I'm not sure, like I think the price is detached from the real value. So and you're playing against the house, right? So you cannot say, okay, it got an F grade and thus it will go bankrupt if they're like if the internal side of the company is controlled and the market is controlled, like if you can push the price wherever you want it to have it, you literally cannot be more clever than the guys controlling the company and the price, right? So they will always win in this system.
Sorry, just to answer one of the questions from the chat, is there any idea why GameStop's running? Also, after we started talking about BuzzFeed, it did run another like 5%, which is kind of funny. But it's actually kind of mimicking. Now that I look into the chart, it's actually kind of mimicking GameStop, which, I mean, you have the same people kind of involved, so it doesn't shock me. But I think that, as much as people don't want things to be political, I made a post today. Overstock had their NFT dividend short squeeze in 2019, and under a certain administration, and the buy button got turned off in another administration. And so I think that, now that there seems to be a lot of momentum in a certain direction politically, people think we're going back to those times, and that the shorts are going to be held accountable. And so, yeah, get out there and vote.
Hey,
Exactly.
hey guys, sorry to interrupt. I'm gonna have
Yeah,
to
you're
get
good.
off and do
Yeah, me too.
some real life stuff. I did really enjoy this call, and I appreciate you setting it up and giving Beyond Mythos a bigger platform to share the Rob grade that he's worked so hard on, and I've been blessed to help him with, and just really digging into this. And if you happen to have, or if anybody happens to have a company that they want him to look at, he's always been very accommodating. And the little mini DDs that he puts together are just, they hit a sweet spot of exactly what you want to see or need to see, to kind of shed a light on some of this stuff. So I, would appreciate if, you guys give him a follow, and reach out if there's any company you want him to look at. And just, again, this is going to be big. He's way ahead of his time. If and when people actually do get paid, that this is going to be what they're looking for. Well, what's next? What company can we buy? What company should GameStop or whoever acquire, merge with? Who are the bad actors? All these things. And really, I think the abusive short sellers are just, this is something that they've never had to deal with. They've had a infinite money glitch where they abusively short sell these stocks down, don't pay tax on it. They're controlling both sides, inside and outside, and the media. And now all of a sudden, retail and everyone else has always dumped their shares, and people are just saying, I might lose my money. These might get canceled but I'm not handing these shares over because I think that there's something there. And they might be right 9 times out of 10, but the one time that they get caught, when the tide goes out, I think it's gonna change things. I think that they're gonna be scared to continue with these shenanigans of destroying these companies. And what Beyond Mythos has done and come up with is going to be a way for people um, to uh, to find out what these companies, which companies are doing this. So I thank you guys, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Any last
thank you
words?
very much. Without you, this wouldn't be there. So thank you very much. It's awesome. Yeah.
And I think we'll end it there. We will do another stream another time, and a lot to be excited about. A lot of good changes in the market, and I think a lot of good things happening for GameStop soon. Not financial advice, but I'll catch you all later.
Awesome. Thanks.